Well, nothing would please me more than to see Frey perp walked in handcuffs. He's impeding ICE investigations. He's fomenting violence. What he's doing is he's putting his own people in harm's way.
The FBI reached unprecedented lows under the Biden-Harris regime, from critical race theory to instigating the January 6 riots in the U.S. Capitol. Now Kash Patel is cleaning the Bureau up with significant consequences for the real bad guys. I'm Hayden Ludwig, and this is Restoration Spotlight. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was formed 118 years ago to chase down criminals who cross state lines. Under good presidents, it's a tool for catching terrorists, stopping killers, and thwarting foreign plots. Under bad, well, there are few agencies so dangerous to American freedom. My guest today, retired FBI Special Agent John Nantz, knows both sides of the Bureau and what Kash Patel is doing to return the FBI to what it was meant to be. John, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
The privilege is ours. So you've written extensively on the damage done by the Biden administration on the FBI, particularly under James Comey. So I want to start there. How will those years be remembered by historians?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think those years are going to be remembered as some of the lowest points in FBI history. I think James Comey in particular will probably be viewed by history as one of the worst FBI directors to ever hold that office. And the reason why I say that, if you look back at the way Hillary Clinton mismanaged her handling of classified data, and the way James Comey excused that, and I'll never forget, I was an FBI agent working in the Washington, D.C. area when the news conference, that infamous news conference occurred, and James Comey went through a whole litany of chargeable offenses, the handling of or mishandling top secret information. And I thought to myself, well, we're finally going to do something good here. We're really going to get to the bottom of some real government corruption and have a real impact. And then he completely switched gears and said that no reasonable prosecutor would pursue this prosecution. And I can tell you that was, in my mind and in the mind of many people that I worked with, a watershed moment in FBI history. Because if any FBI employee had done what she did, you'd immediately have been walked out. Your security clearance would have been suspended, and you probably would have been the subject of a counterintelligence investigation.
Wow. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was the impetus for that?
The impetus for his
changing gears. It was deeply unexpected. I remember that moment 10 years ago now. That was nobody knew whether he was the most evil man or the best man in America. We couldn't decide for a little while. I think we know now, but tell me more.
Well, he was a very personable guy. So as to the evil man, to put it in biblical framework, I mean, the devil comes to you as an angel of light, right? So I think a lot of people who wear suits and have nice smiles are not on God's side of the equation. But as to Comey and why he switched gears, I think it was purely political. I think James Comey was very much a political animal. He was beholden to the administration and the administration that appointed him, and I think that politics overrode any interest in pursuing justice or pursuing an investigation based on the evidence, based on the facts.
So I want to stick with Comey a little bit and get your thoughts on the latest from his indictment over his 2020 Senate testimony. Bring us up to speed, because my understanding is in December, the Justice Department appealed a federal judge's dismissal of all charges against him. And those charges are pretty big. Obstructing a congressional investigation, I believe lying to Congress is among them too. Tell me what is going on there. Bring us up to speed for those who are not following it. And do you expect to see justice brought there?
Well, seeing justice in that particular case is actually a pretty high bar.
Hmm.
And Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, actually warned Trump about this at the outset, and Trump didn't receive that information very well. But to prove those kinds of charges, it's very, very difficult to do. I think from a strategic perspective, maybe not the best move because of the difficulty in proving that he intended to lie, he intended to misrepresent. That's tough to do. Uh, do I expect to see justice? I'm not optimistic. I'll just put it that way. And with the dismissal of the grand jury indictment because of some issues with the appointment of Lindsay Halligan, I don't think that bodes well for the prosecution. So I'm not optimistic. And the thing that concerns me the most is if you have Comey, quote unquote, victorious in this particular matter, then that doesn't look good for the Trump administration. So,
Hmm.
like I said before, I think strategically, maybe not the best avenue of attack with regard to trying to hold James Comey accountable.
It does, a victory there does make, let's say, the deep state look more powerful, feel more
Right.
invincible.
Right.
And that's the thing that will frustrate people the most. You know, it seems that bad guys like this keep getting away with stuff, and
Hmm.
the only people who ever go to prison are the peons, if even they go to prison.
Hmm. Well, I don't think people are wrong in feeling that there's a two-tiered justice system. There's a justice system for the rest of us, and there's a justice system for the privileged, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why is Hillary Clinton still walking around free after the things that she did? I really don't think it can be overstated the jeopardy that she put this country in, the national security threat that she posed by housing top secret information on a server in her basement. And I don't think people understand. Top secret information is classified as such because if that kind of information is revealed to our enemies, it's assessed that it would cause grave damage to national security, grave damage. So that's what Hillary Clinton did simply because she thought she was above the law,
Yeah. Convenient.
untouchable, convenient, correct. So I think these are things that the Trump DOJ is working to try to rectify, particularly with the stuff that we're seeing in Minneapolis right now with these nut jobs invading that church, violating the FACE Act.
Yes.
Elena Haba, I mean, she is great, and she has minced no words in discussing the DOJ posture toward this type of behavior. So hopefully we'll see prosecutions in that way very, very soon.
I'm glad you brought that up. We're recording in mid-January as a lot of these events are unfolding. I think just today, the FBI has made moves towards, I don't know if it's indicting or arresting Jacob Frey, Tim Waltz. Bring us up to speed on all of this. Obviously, this is breaking news as of the time of recording here. So give us your perspective as a retired special agent.
Well, nothing would please me more than to see Frey perp walked in handcuffs. He's he's impeding ICE investigations. He's fomenting violence,
Hmm.
and what he's doing is he's putting his own people in harm's way. And as Holm has said many times, if you didn't have these sanctuary cities, ICE wouldn't have to be conducting these sweep operations. They wouldn't have to be engaging and interfacing so much with the general public. These things could be handled inside the controlled environment of penal institutions, inside of jails, inside of prisons.
Sure.
So what Frey is doing is creating this environment where ICE agents are being put in a position to have to make life and death decisions. So I hope he's prosecuted for these matters. I hope he's prosecuted for interfering with federal investigations, ICE investigations in particular. Remember, these guys, they're enforcing federal law. And I don't know
Yeah.
if your audience has seen, there's a clip that's been fairly viral where an ICE agent in a black pickup truck is talking to someone who's interfering, and he's saying, "Hey, look, I don't know if you realize this, but we're trying to arrest child predators here. These are the kind of people you're trying to protect."
Yes.
So,
I have actually seen press releases, which is something most normal people don't enjoy reading, but press releases from ICE and the Justice Department that it's a laundry list of men they're arresting. A surprising number of them come from Laos or Vietnam, Southeast Asia. It's not just Hispanics, which is interesting.
no.
They tend to concentrate in certain parts of the country, and there's a big population of Laotians, evidently, in the Minneapolis area. These are people who are doing the most heinous crimes imaginable, and they're almost always directed at women and children because, of course, they're vulnerable.
Right.
And this is the hill that the left is choosing to stand on. And at the risk of sounding cynical here, because we are in an election midterm year, the Democrats are being forced to defend the ugliest, most criminal acts because they've chosen to defend all illegal aliens, all illegal immigration, all open borders crime at the same time. And if conservatives are clever, we point that out. We say, yes, I'm going to make you, instead of the Mexican grandma, right, defend this kind of sex predator who's attacking 11-year-old girls. And the Democrats will rise to that. So this is one of those instances where I hope conservatives are able to turn that against our opponents and show this is what you get when Democrats run your country, because this is how they've been running Minnesota for decades.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they're so angry and exercised about this because Trump is undoing the invasion at the border that we saw during the Biden administration, and you're talking about 20-something million people that the Democrats are hoping will eventually become Democrat voters. This is what it's really all about, and that's why they're opposing ICE operations, because ICE is attempting to deport their potential voters, their future voters. So it's a direct threat to Democrat political power, and that's why they're fighting this so hard. And these are all organized movements. The people of Minneapolis, I think, on the whole, are opposed to this. They're attacking people in the street. They're accosting people in their vehicles. Just a brief overview of social media will show you how bad it is, and how bad the Democrat leadership has failed their city and their state.
Not just voters, too. I think there's an aspect of this that's even more malicious, and that is potential paramilitaries. I mean, at a certain point, you see in a culture war, things turn very violent and very ugly. And I don't think it's beyond the pale. I'm not thinking Chuck Schumer's arranging this, but I do think there are leftists in the DSA, for instance, who absolutely anticipate violence as a means to taking power. They are Bolsheviks. They are communists. They think in terms of, the barrel of a gun is where your political power comes from. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, 100%. This is nothing new. I mean, this has been going on since the 30s, really.
Yes.
And Hoover, whether people hate him or love him, a controversial figure, but very, very, very aware of the communist threat, and absolutely right about the communist threat in many, many respects. And it has not changed at all. And it is still the objective of worldwide Marxism to impose a collectivist political structure by force wherever they have the opportunity to do so. And we're seeing that here in America. And what many, many people think are grassroots sort of movements are not grassroots at all. There's George Soros money behind much of this stuff. There is money coming from Hamas, individuals that are sympathetic to the quote unquote Palestinian plight. So there are many, many actors here. There are many foreign powers that love to take advantage of any kind of opportunity to agitate and to undermine our society. So this is a complex issue. It's not What you see on the media, what you see in the news is simply just literally the tip of the iceberg, the surface of what's really happening.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. I want to change gears a little bit. You recently testified on Capitol Hill.
Mhm.
Tell us more about that.
Well, that was it was a privilege. It was an honor to do so. I had the opportunity to talk about the pipe bomb investigation before the select subcommittee, and to discuss why the Biden era FBI was unable to put their finger on a subject when
And
it
this is the
only.
January 6th
Yes.
Capitol riot pipe bomb we're talking about. Yes.
Yes, that's correct. And why it only took maybe, about 6 months for the Kash Patel FBI, for Trump's FBI, to have us to name a subject and to arrest a subject.
Hmm.
And my testimony really boiled down to a matter of narrative and how dangerous political narrative is, especially when it becomes inserted in federal investigations. And I think essentially that's what you had happened. You had a narrative coming from the White House. It was the January 6th insurrection, violent
Yes.
white extremist narrative, right? And I believe from what I have seen, it's very likely that the FBI had Cole as I would say, as a person of interest, probably by late 2021, if not by 22. But a black male from Woodbridge, Virginia, did not fit that violent white extremist narrative.
Wow.
So the case became de-emphasized. And Bongino has said himself, Patel has said himself, that this is not based on new evidence. This is all based on evidence that the FBI had in its possession. And there were a new set of eyes essentially that were brought in, TFOs or task force officers, alongside of FBI agents. They're called CAS agents. They're cellular analysis people. A new algorithm had to be written to sort of demystify T-Mobile data that had been in the FBI's possession, and that was really the linchpin that brought about the arrest of Brian Cole Jr. So, incredibly detailed confession. There's
Wow.
no doubt in my mind that this is the right guy.
It's amazing the difference that leadership makes. You've heard January 6th described as a Fedsurrection, right? What's your take on that? What was the role of the FBI in orchestrating what was just a peaceful protest there about the 2020 election fraud, turning into a riot inside the Capitol building with Ray Epps, et cetera?
Well, I disagree with the Fedsurrection narrative.
Interesting.
There were 26 confidential human sources, or CHSs, in the crowd, which doesn't surprise me in the least. With a crowd of that size, with elements, right-wing sort of extremist elements that were part of that crowd, doesn't surprise me that there were individuals there that are paid to provide the FBI information. The real question is, were they directed to be there, right?
Right.
And I think the answer to that question is no. I don't think they were directed to be there. I think they were there as part of their normal associations. That's why they were on the FBI payroll. Something that the public needs to really understand, and it's being that is being obfuscated, is the truth behind why 200, I think it was 226 or 266 actual agents were there that day.
Right.
They they weren't there in the crowd during the demonstration. They were actually deployed afterwards to provide crowd control,
Interesting.
which is something the FBI does not do. That's a whole nother issue. But the Fedsurrection narrative is not something that I hold with any credibility or confidence. Were there elements that were organized? 100%. You mentioned Ray Epps. Was there some sort of organized element behind Ray Epps? I think so. Who exactly was that? I don't know. I mean, you had a lot of different groups there. I mentioned in my testimony that when J6 happened, I was working at an offsite in the Washington field office, And I watched it on Fox News. I watched it unfold, and I watched as individuals who were wearing the uniform of Antifa were agitating and provoking and instigating individuals to do things they probably would not have otherwise have done. So,
Sure.
do I think there was some sort of false flag? No question about it. But I think it came from the left, not the right.
And it's I agree with that last part, especially. It's the kind of thing the left wished was more violent, actually. They wish it was a real full-on guns blazing insurrection because it's very obvious, they're looking for the opportunity to crush a nascent populist conservative movement. And that would be the easiest way, politically to completely dispel any kind of momentum that the right would have to crush it like that. And it wasn't actually the thing that they said it was. It's very interesting. Moving back to Kash Patel. So you've written a lot for Restoration News and elsewhere about the changes that Director Patel has brought to the FBI. Give us the big picture here. How different does this look? Is this closer to the FBI that you served in than it should be?
Well, it's kind of like, where do you start? I mean, Patel has been responsible for so many changes. If we start with just the statistics, not long ago he just put out since January of 2025, basically the start of the Trump administration, the Bureau has participated either on its own or in conjunction with local partners in 67,000 arrests. That's just a mind-boggling number. It's a 197% increase over the Biden era FBI. When it comes to, I started out in counterintelligence, so these numbers are a little bit more significant to me. You have almost 60 arrests in the counterintelligence arena. That's unheard of. So Patel is doing some tremendous things. One of the big fundamental things that he's done is he's pushed people out of headquarters and out into the field. So that's why you're seeing these dramatic increases in arrest numbers.
So counterintelligence, so we're talking about foreign intelligence agents or assets.
Yes. Like it's their SVR now, but used to be KGB, Chinese intel, all that stuff. The FBI is the sole domestic agency that's responsible for catching foreign spies in acts of espionage. So that number is very, very significant, and there is a lot more work that needs to be done. China is the existential threat to us, without a doubt, and their intelligence operations here in America are not being properly addressed, and that is something that the FBI has to continue to work on. I know it's a priority for Kash Patel, but frankly, it takes some time to move a bureaucracy that has been inert or misdirected for so long. I mean, really, you had the FBI expending its resources and trying to track down, as you mentioned before, grandmas or people guilty of nothing more than federal trespassing. That all has a cost, because you're dealing with finite resources. So you have the FBI conducting the biggest investigation in its history, which was January 6th, and you have counterintelligence matters that are not being addressed. You have counterterrorism matters that are not being addressed. That's why you have, I think the number is right at, I think 100 counterterrorism arrests, if I'm correct about that, which is a huge increase over the Biden administration. So these are very profound change. Elections matter. I mentioned that in my congressional testimony. This was a very significant election, and Trump's appointees are doing what they should be doing. Kash Patel is doing what he should be doing to get the FBI back on track. And I think the raw data shows that he's being successful.
Changing gears here, going out on a limb, I guess, too. The recent arrest of Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, There's a lot of different pieces that could unfold here. One of the ones most interesting to me is the effect this has on the drug cartels. And that was the justification, not that he's the head of state, but that he's a head of a massive, perhaps the biggest global criminal drug cartel operation in the world. What does this bode, thinking from a law enforcement standpoint, what does this bode for the Mexican drug cartels that are operating all throughout the country right now, just from across the border? Do you think this is setting up any kind of action against them? Because let's not forget, last year, the president designated a whole bunch of these cartels, like Jalisco New Generation, I think, as foreign terrorist organizations. And that opens up a whole lot of kind of wartime powers to move against them.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I were a drug cartel kingpin or drug cartel member, I'd be really worried. I mean, if American can go in and just pluck out of bed a head of state with absolutely zero casualties to us, I mean, I don't know what the veracity of some of those reports from the security guards are, but if they're anything close to the truth, uh, I'd take Trump's words very, very seriously. And what we're doing out in the ocean, interdicting those drug running boats, it's sending a very clear message that the Trump administration is not going to stand for this. That the fentanyl, the scourge of fentanyl, that the influx of drugs, that cartel activity, that gang activity that is always associated with that, is being viewed as a national security threat.
Yes.
And that means that our most lethal assets are going to be leveraged in this fight. So if if Trump decides to put the crosshairs on any one of these individuals, there's no place for them to hide.
John, as we close out, one of the things that you've written a lot about in the last 4 or 5 months is the growth of assassination culture in America. Obviously, a lot of this triggered by the murder of Charlie Kirk in September. You obviously think that's on the rise. What do you see coming over the next 4 or 5 years? Do you think things will get uglier, more violent on the left? What about the right? Give us the big picture here.
Well, I don't see that so much as a threat from the right. Historically speaking, that's always a tool of the left. And I think as the left becomes more and more marginalized, or maybe I should say, I hope they become more and more marginalized.
Sure.
The conservatives should not take the midterms for granted. They should not take the next presidential election cycle for granted. But if they feel that they are more marginalized, they will continue to become more and more violent. That's in Rules for Radicals. That's in any socialist handbook that is floating around out there. That political violence is a tool of the left, and it's because they cannot survive based on the free marketplace of ideas. If people really understand what socialists are talking about, which socialism is at least in this country, just a euphemism for communism. They want no part of it because all you have to do is look at Joseph Stalin's Russia. I think the low estimations are 60 million people died as a result of communist programs of Stalinist era oppression. And that's what socialism, communism always becomes. It's always authoritarian. It's always oppressive, and it's anti-human. So that's kind of it's a complex question. I think it depends on a number of factors. I think if they, like I said, if they feel marginalized, they're going to resort more and more to violence. So law enforcement is going to have to be very efficient at dealing with these threats.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it that way, because I hear many conservatives, particularly older conservatives, who say violence is never the answer. That's a wonderful platitude. The left doesn't believe it, and they've never believed it. For them, violence is definitely an answer, and they don't need it if it's 2008 and they have a really good candidate to run for the presidency. They probably need it when it's 2026, and they don't. They think that way. The other rule I think you get from Rules for Radicals is that revolutions are not mass movements. They're always run by small cliques of ruthless and ruthlessly focused elites, oligarchs, who want to knock off the other oligarchs so they can take their place. And the left knows that. That's why they're so incredibly tightly organized and coordinated. And a lot of that stuff doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes interlinking, activists and radicals. And they know this. They're preparing for this. And the only way you defeat them is the right being aware of it. And the FBI could be a really powerful tool for breaking up those criminal cells.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the big purposes of the FBI. And the Bureau is very good at it. In fact, you don't really hear much about the Communist Party USA anymore, and that's simply because the FBI infiltrated it and conducted appropriate investigations and brought prosecutions. Same thing with organized crime. So the FBI is very good at getting into organizations that pose a threat to our democracies, interdicting their activities, and dismantling those types of organizations. So I think with Kash Patel as the director, I think things look good for the American people's FBI. We just need to keep seeing forward progress. And there are a lot of quote unquote black pillars out there who are just incessantly undermining Patel, AG Pam Bondi. They're all just being used as proxies, really, because they're too afraid to attack Trump directly. So don't be fooled by that either. There are individuals who claim to be on the right that are attempting to undermine and subvert the MAGA movement, the Trump administration, because, in my opinion, they don't want to see a Vance presidency. They have other individuals that they would rather see running for president.
Yeah, don't take the black pill, take the red pill. I completely agree on that. Since you mentioned the CPUSA, I wonder if there is a parallel right now between that and the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, because that is an organization that it's very clear it aspires to take over the Democratic Party. And they're starting in places that they can. Zoran Mamdani is DSA. Oregon and Washington are practically run by DSA members. They start in places where there's no conservative resistance, so it's like an intra-party battle in the primary structure. And they are the ones that are slowly pushing the Democrats towards more and more radicalism, and they will not forswear violence at all. Do you think that the FBI is attuned to them as more or less a revival of Soviet-era communist organizations?
I would think so. I don't know directly, but given what given the resources that Patel is allocating to what's going on in Minneapolis and the unrest that we saw out west in Portland not long ago, and he's made statements that he's very, very committed to getting to the bottom of where the money is coming from. That is a direct indication that the FBI will be looking at these organizations. So any organization that is involved in agitation or conducting political violence is going to get the scrutiny of the FBI.
Well-deserved scrutiny too. John Nantz, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
I'm Hayden Ludwig, and this is Restoration Spotlight, a project of Restoration News, your source of headline-smashing investigative journalism for the America First movement. Check us out at restoration-news.com. Until next time, stay vigilant and trust in God.